then twist it. And we're good. Come on in.
All right.
Hi, I'm Spartacus. Welcome to the Greg and Donny News Show. And I'm doing that all day. I'm having too much fun. So I'm your conservative. I'm Greg. And your turn.
I'm Donny, and I really don't have a good Spartacus thing to hop on this week, but hopefully I'll have something next week.
That's Cory Booker. It was so funny. So if you want to check out the I'm Spartacus clip, it's on the Greg and Donny News page somewhere. I've probably posted it several times. So we've been here on more. This is our third video this morning. We're just on a roll. We're just running these pretty much back to back because we have so much to talk about things that are going. I want to totally change the subject. There is a lawsuit going on right now with Harvard University. It's been going on for, I think, a couple of years, where Asian American, or I think maybe even Asian international students, but predominantly Asian American students are being systematically rejected from Harvard because they have too many Asians. They're overrepresented. And I find this a fascinating concept. It's like affirmative action in reverse. In other words, it's okay if you're below the quota to be, quote, more representative of your population. That's why I don't believe in group identity. But if you're over your quota, which for Asians apparently is about 20% for some reason, if you're over that, then you get restricted, and you have to match, you have to match white, black, and Hispanic candidates to balance out the overabundance of Asians. I think this is wrong. I would go strictly on a merit system, and if it was strictly by merit, Harvard would be about 40% Asian American students, and I don't have a problem with that. If those are the folks that are worthy of getting in, they are. But what do you think of that lawsuit?
I didn't even read about this. Is this not an Onion article?
What's an Onion article?
Like, is this not satire? It's so dumb.
No, it's a real lawsuit.
That's not the lawsuit. I mean, the thing itself that's supposedly happening. So dumb.
Oh no, Harvard has definitely admitted that they use race in classification. Yeah, so you could be
admitted and everything.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, but here's this real. I'll tell you what this is most interesting was when I was in San Francisco in the Bay Area. Bay Area has a large population of both Asians and Asian immigrants and Asian American students. Because you get a lot of folks, because they're on the Pacific Ocean, right? So you get a lot of folks coming from China. I'll tell you when we got a lot of people was when Hong Kong went from British rule back to Chinese rule. Right. When the 99-year lease for Hong Kong ended, a whole bunch of folks came to San Francisco, to LA, and Seattle, and also Vancouver, Canada. And it was easiest for Vancouver because the folks were still in the British Commonwealth. And so they're basically British Commonwealth citizens. They had a British passport, and so that's when a lot of Asian folks came to San Francisco. I'll tell you, in fact, we can talk about the Chinese Exclusion Act. People are now learning about this. They didn't realize that Asians were actually excluded in our immigration all the way through Ellis Island. It wasn't until after Ellis Island. This passed in the 1880s. I think it went to like the 1930s. Yeah, 1965.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Asian in the 30s.
Wow. No, I don't think Asian, because that's when Kennedy has his immigration bill. It really changed. So the Asian folks that were here from the 1800s, like the Chinese who came here to build the railroads and had many generations. Japanese who came here, remember the movie The Last Samurai? Yeah. Okay. So a lot of Japanese citizens left Japan at that time because they didn't like the modernization. They wanted to live a more traditional lifestyle, so they went to Hawaii. When Hawaii got too crowded, they went to the West Coast, and that's why we have a large Japanese population, a lot of whom were interned wrongly by the Roosevelt administration in World War II. But that's where a lot of our Asian folks come from, and especially on the West Coast. There's a huge Asian population. I'll say you would actually enjoy San Francisco for the simple reason that everybody's a minority, okay? And so it's interesting for me being here because it's different, because there's much more of a white population here in the Panhandle of Florida. But in San Francisco, literally everybody's a minority. There is no majority population. You're about 1/3 white, 1/3 black, 1/3 Asian. About 1/4 white, black, Asian, and Hispanic. And there's like mixtures of other folks, Pacific Islanders and other folks kind of mixed in there. But it's pretty evenly divided, and so it's nothing to see restaurants from all over the world, people from all over the world, Americans, who are representing people from all over the world, and that's okay. But the Asian population works hard. It's a tradition in Asian families to study, to do the academics, to get into a good university. And this fight didn't start with Harvard. It actually started with the University of California, Berkeley. When I was there, I remember this fight 10, 12 years ago, that Asian students were being systematically rejected because of racial quotas working against them. And we were all joking about this in the talk shows, going, yeah, see? Now you know what it's like to be a white guy. You know, and because like I say, I was 16 when I was told I couldn't have a job because I was the wrong skin color. I mean, the airport manager actually said that to me. I was going for an airport job, government job. But this is a big problem in the Asian community. They say, what is the point? It's like socialism. What's the point of working hard only to have the fruits of your labor taken away? What's the point of working hard in school if you're not going to get to go to the university that your academics allow you to go to? So you haven't really looked into this yet.
I didn't even know there was a lawsuit. I'm definitely...
Oh yeah, this is a big time lawsuit, yeah. But it's not being publicized because it's not popular in the liberal press. They're not going to want to talk about this. They're not going to want to talk about the fact that Harvard, you know, their pristine Ivy League university, is denying students because they have too many Asians. You know, it'd be one thing if they're... See, here's the thing. Asians are a minority group. This is why it's such a conflict, I think, for the left. Because you've got the left, you've got a Harvard, you've got a leftist university denying a minority group access to the university. All right? So this is why I say Asians are the new white people.
Asians are the new
Asians are the new... I just made that up. Asians are the new white people. Okay? So Asians are soon to be people of no color, which is why I hate the description people of color. Because if you're not a person of color, that means you're a person of no color. Okay? We've got color. All right? So you can't... So it's almost a racist discrimination, or actually a dismissal, a complete dismissal of white people, saying that we have no color. And if you don't have color, of course, then you're not visible. If you're not visible, you don't matter. How's that for a segue? I'm just running all over this guy this morning. It's really kind of, I'm on a roll. So hopefully you'll have your Wheaties next week and get your vitamins and get lots of sleep and get ready for the debate. And yeah, because when I'm on the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. So age is not a limitation to mental capacity. Have you seen those ads? You know, when you get older, you need to eat jellyfish to get smarter. Okay, I'm just laughing my butt off when I'm watching this thing. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Because I'll tell you what, the more you debate, I honestly believe it's like brain exercise. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I've gotten better at this since my talk show started, and so this is why I love doing this. So all you folks that are worried about your brains, just debate. Anybody. Find some 19-year-old college kid who's a socialist, Bernie Sanders liberal, and start talking to him. Amazing things will happen. That's going to happen for me. So that's what I feel about that issue. More, yes? You want to study it some more and come back? And
yeah, I'll definitely have to study it some more.
Well, why don't you ask it at PSC?
I will.
Pensacola State College.
Yeah.
Go. In fact, can we get the admissions person on? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Bring him here. Bring the admissions person, and let's see how they do that, and how they may not be able. In fact, no comment would be kind of a funny comment.
Yeah.
That'd be a comment all by itself. Do you have another topic you want to bring up? Because I have. Have you seen my list?
I have.
I even showed you page 2. Okay. So there is a page 2.
Wow.
Yeah. See, I got a lot of stuff I can talk about. All right.
I got my
Go ahead.
kind of a statewide topic.
Please do.
How do you feel about the lieutenant governor picks? Because it seems like
you've got me.
The Republicans.
I don't know anything about them. Help me out.
The Republicans seem happy with who DeSantis picked. He picked a. I actually don't remember her name, but he picked a Latino woman rather.
Okay.
And
yeah, you can only have one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think what he's.
But why do we identify her as a Latino woman? Why don't we say he picked a conservative intellectual with a legal background or something like that?
Well, here's why. Because Andrew Gillum picked a white man, and that's been very. I mean, I don't really care so much.
This is a great issue. No, you've raised a fascinating issue. It goes back to group identity. Why, it's like in the Obama administration, most of the officials were black, okay? Were they qualified for the position? I certainly hope so. I don't think they were because they were liberal, okay? But, in other words, if you're a black president, do you have to appoint a black cabinet to be black in America? That's a great question. Does Andrew Gillum have to have a black lieutenant governor to be viewed as black by the left? Because the conservatives, we don't care.
A lot of people, myself included, kind of wish he had picked Gwen Graham.
Okay. Why?
Because it was, remember last week I told you Chris King, that other guy I considered voting for, was the one who was really being considered.
Right,
well,
I remember that.
Got picked.
Okay.
And I like Chris King. Personally, I love this decision.
Okay.
But just it being an entirely progressive ticket with no moderates or anything, I don't know how well that's going to appeal to a lot of people. Even some of Gwen's more moderate supporters, because she actually had quite a few Republicans.
So you want to match a socialist main candidate with like a moderate thinking, but still the socialist Andrew Gillum, he's going to be the one signing the bills. He's going to be the one making the policy. Even if you have a lieutenant governor, isn't it more of a figurehead position? I mean, does the lieutenant governor get half the bills to sign or not?
Not necessarily, but they are involved.
Okay. Well, it's good to have them involved. Yeah.
More so than the vice president.
I was just thinking of Mike Pence when he said that, too. I was thinking, how can we bring God into this conversation again? Well, that's an interesting point. I didn't know that. Because I'm learning about Florida politics. Now, Lieutenant Governor in California, that is a position where they do try and upset the governor. And, in fact, I think Gray Davis was his name. In fact, we even recalled Gray Davis back in California. So any of my California viewers will remember this, that when I think that whoever the governor was, I forgot who it was at the time, Duke Machen or something like that. It's back when California had Republican governors, which will probably never happen again.
Good.
Well, not necessarily, because those Republican governors, built the highways and made the reservoirs when they could, and did the infrastructure and kept the schools going, and they did some pretty good things.
Right.
They were boring. And I don't count Arnold Schwarzenegger as a Republican governor.
Really?
No, not at all. No, he was terrible. I'm talking about Duke Machen, Pete Wilson, really boring people you've never heard of, and that's what I like in a governor. They're administrators. It's like CEOs of major corporations. They don't go around parading themselves all the time. Some do. Like Zuckerman or Zuckerberg of Facebook. I mean, he's everywhere. But a lot of and My Pillow. Everybody knows who he is, right? Because how much do you think it costs to make one of those pillows? 2 cents? Yeah. For the materials. So he's got a 2-cent. This is marketing for it. He's got a 2-cent pillow, and then he does like TV marathon ads and infomercials going forever. So you're paying for his infomercials because that pillow's only worth about 2 cents. Sorry, Mike. Guess who we're not going to get for a sponsor? That's okay. He hasn't heard. We're not that big yet. Okay. So we won't send him this video. Did we get Mike Pillow? Now that I thought about it. Oh, he's back to Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah.
Because we have digressed thoroughly. That's an interesting point. And do you find that a limitation, being a Democrat, that you feel that urge if you have a black lead candidate for governor to then have a black administration with him?
Not really. I just think you should have qualified administration with him.
Okay. So if you had an equally qualified black person and white person, who?
I mean, one of them has to be more qualified than the other.
Oh, that's a great answer. Oh, you see how we got it out? That was perfect. Yeah.
I mean,
I would have gone with the woman because I like working with women, but that's me. This just, I just do. Although I hang out with this guy because we have fun.
Whoever's more qualified, that's
someone. Yeah, and I think someone, because no two people are equal. So that's a good point.
Well, good people in the government, not quotas. Yeah,
exactly. Now, do you support affirmative action though?
To an extent.
Okay. Because that's a quota. All right. I think I never thought it served a purpose for what it was designed. I think it was more acceptable to people, but I think it's now to the point where we have equalized so much of our education. And I'm still, the biggest problem when they say that especially black kids don't have the same educational opportunities, the schools are horrible. Most of those schools are in big cities. And I think if you look at big city schools versus, rural, more small town schools, I think that's where you're going to see a lot of difference because the smaller schools get to do more of what they want to do. I think the big city schools are more at the whim of some of the big city mayors, administrators, and things like that. And the unions, I think they have more power. I think the unions serve the teachers and themselves more than they serve the kids. And so I think if we can, I think that whatever differences there are in schools, I don't think it's money exclusively. And I think there must be a way that we can equalize these so that everybody does have the same educational opportunity. So we don't have schools like Harvard saying, well, we have to take Hispanic kids that aren't as qualified, that have lower academic standards than the Asian kids we're not taking because we have too many Asians, simply because we want people represented, and have those kids who don't meet the academic standards most likely fail, which is what happens a lot of times. So you're forcing people into a position that they're not ready for, whereas if they went to, say, the state university, might do extremely well and be very successful and move on to great careers. But if put in a situation by Harvard, they might become so disillusioned with college, they'd drop out completely and never go, when they'd be perfectly happy at, say, the University of Massachusetts.
Right.
Or the University of Connecticut as opposed to Yale. Or University of California, Berkeley, which is better than most of the Ivy League schools. But it's not Stanford. Okay, so it just depends on how this works. All right. New topic?
I've
got one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. We talked about the Aretha Franklin funeral and the John McCain funeral before.
I know where this is going.
I found a eulogy. In fact, there was an article in American Thinker that somebody had posted. First of all, I want to thank everybody that posted to Facebook. The reason I live on Facebook is because a lot of the material comes from everybody else finding these incredible gems that we're able to kind of capitalize on, as opposed to socialize on. Just thought I'd throw that in. And so what I found was, I've never heard a eulogy like this before. It's on the Greg and Donny Facebook News Show Facebook page. It's on my Action Radio Facebook page. He went on for about 45 minutes. It's Pastor Jasper Williams. And what I found so incredible about what he was saying, he sort of put Aretha Franklin in perspective of where she came from and what the times were that she was born into. And for a black pastor, and I think black Americans are about to go through a revolution. Just to digress a little bit, I think one of the most amazing opportunities right now is for black conservatives. Because if you look at the videos criticizing Obama, you know, all the media outlets, what's the woman that's from Turning Point? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I don't remember her name.
I forget her name in a minute. We're terrible on names.
We are.
But the thing is, black conservatives right now have unbelievable media opportunities because everybody wants a black conservative to criticize the liberals because now it looks like, now it's different. It's not just, you know, a white person, you know, who can be accused of racism. So this is an amazing trend going on right now in media that I think they're just incredible opportunities. But I digress. What do you think of that, first of all? Do you see it?
Yeah, I suppose I do see it.
Do you see media outlets openly finding black conservatives to try and get these views? I do too. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah,
all right.
Right here, Mike Hill's a good example.
Mike's great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Love to have him on.
Mike, if you're listening,
No
I sent him all our videos. And we're going to get better chairs too. We're not going to be like chest level. I feel like I'm like a little kid at McDonald's at the counter or something like that right now. So we're definitely getting the headshot. We literally are the talking heads for this video. All right. Back to the pastor. So what he said was that during segregation, black Americans had more of a community, had a better economy, because the segregated black businesses had to deal with each other. There were black banks dealing with black grocery stores, dealing with black real estate agents, dealing with, it was a segregated community. Now segregation's wrong. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying was the reality is that the economy for black families was better, and the rate of fathers in the home during segregation was about 70% of fathers in the home, and now it's just the opposite. Only about 30% of black homes have fathers in the home, and fathers are the #1 way that kids succeed. And so that's been proven from Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the senator who talked about it, to studies that are coming out today. Did you see Laura Ingram's? Probably didn't. If you watch Fox News, Laura Ingram had a town hall talking about Chicago and the problems, and most of the commentators were black, and it was fascinating to watch. So I say this is a golden opportunity for black commentators to be conservatives to really make a name. I can't believe I can't remember that woman's name. It's bugging me because I wanted her on my show back when I had the WBY show. But this pastor got up and he wasn't screamed at. Now, think about this. Just try and conceptualize Donald Trump saying to a black audience, well, you know, you had it better during segregation, okay? You know, you had a better economy, you dealt with each other, you kept your businesses to yourself, and by the way, there were more fathers at home. He would never hear the end of it.
Probably said it in private, but I digress.
Well, you don't know that. That's your second cheap. Donny said 2. He's got 2 cheap shots in, okay? But think about that for a second. Think about if any white person had said that. First of all, no white person would say that.
Right.
But for a pastor to say that and then say, okay, so what he's saying is we've lost our soul. He's saying to his black community that the black community has lost their soul. They've lost their men. And basically what he didn't say was that this was caused, and this is what I would add, is caused by the Great Society program, which allowed women, single women, as single mothers, to get, you know, housing and food stamps and everything else like that, and basically made black men irrelevant. Not just black men, but all men in family situations. Single mothers, you know, used to be shamed, they used to have to be taken care of by their families, and the guys would either support them, get married, or join the Navy, and, you know, take off and be gone. It's like, you know, so here are your choices, okay? And that was, I don't know if you remember that, but I've heard people who talk about, you know, back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
That was the choice. If your girlfriend got pregnant, you know, you either got married or you left town because nobody wanted to deal with you. You know, and then the family would take care of the daughter. Hopefully, I mean, that didn't always happen. I mean, there are always horror stories. But anyway,
I'm glad we moved on from that.
I wish we would. I'd like, and what the pastor said, and what I'd like to see the same thing. How do we restore that economics that worked unfortunately during segregation. It's kind of hard to say that, but how do we improve the situation? Like especially in Chicago, relating to the Laura Ingraham town hall last night. How do we get those rates of fathers at home up? It's almost like you have to. If you got rid of the government programs, would that do that? In other words, if the charity went back up, if private charities, if churches took care of people, if the like Jack Kemp was big on this. Remember his neighborhood program. Jack Kemp was really big on, especially in urban communities, Black, Hispanic, it didn't matter which ones. He would want to go in and create the jobs and things like that. If the economy were there, would that make a difference? In other words, can we have a private source that sort of supersedes the government for help, get people from being dependent on government, improve the situation, and get the economy that Black families used to have, and the families that Black families used to have? It was a fascinating eulogy, and I think it's a topic that it hasn't broken out yet. He sort of fired the opening shot here, Pastor Jasper Williams. Go to the Greg and Donny Facebook page. All the stuff is on there. All the things we talk about are always posted there because we want to make sure that you have the information. If you want more information, you can look it up ahead of time before we talk about it, and you can certainly look it up there after we talk about it. That's the whole point. What do you think of did you get a chance to watch that eulogy?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think you're being a little hard on the Great Society there.
Okay.
Because what we actually saw worked pretty well. However, the Great Society itself, whereas the New Deal that came before got to actually live on, the Great Society was killed in its tracks by Vietnam.
How was that?
So he never got to push through a lot of what he wanted. He got the bare minimum. He got those programs you were talking about.
What don't we have now that he wanted?
Well, I mean, the whole thing was really, it's like he said, it was supposed to be a hand up, not a handout.
But it became a handout.
It did.
Affirmative action is a handout. Section 8 housing,
Vietnam
WIC,
really
food stamps. Now, how did Vietnam take that away, though?
Well, no. I mean, after Vietnam, no one wanted to work with LBJ on anything, and everything was focused on Vietnam. Like domestic policy, really, and at the. Do
you know how much of the federal budget was taken up in Vietnam?
How much?
I don't. That's not a rhetorical question. That's an actual question. I don't know.
I mean, a lot.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. How much of the federal budget was taken up by Vietnam? And where did the money come from? They always say the guns and butter argument. If you have more guns, you have less butter. And so it's kind of a domestic spending versus military spending. And so the Democrats have this really bizarre theory that whatever you spend on the military, you have to automatically spend on social programs, which is not a way to budget. That's just well, if you got $1, I want $1 too. That's like a childish way to budget, I think. But that's this. But it's interesting you talk about Vietnam. Now here's a contrast for you. They say, which I don't agree with, they say that World War II got us out of the Depression. It seems to me, though, that Vietnam got us into the recession in the 70s that Nixon tried to get out of with wage and price controls. I don't know if you remember those. All right.
Nixon was pretty left-wing.
He was very left-wing. He brought the EPA. He did all kinds of things. He talked to Mao, of all people. I think it's fascinating. But yeah, so how much did Vietnam change our domestic politics, and how did that affect the Great Society? I've never thought about it. I have no idea. I think it's a fascinating thing for if you want to present more information on it, I'd be curious.
We were from like the 30s onward. We really were on a path to becoming a more left-wing nation.
Okay.
Sort of like what I propose: a capitalist nation with a really good safety net. And Vietnam just came in. I really do think this was the goal with killing Kennedy. I think John and Bobby Kennedy were killed for this exact purpose. Martin Luther King too, probably.
Okay.
I mean, I think
because of the Great Society?
Not the Great Society, just because in general we were moving towards a more caring, more progressive society.
But you can vote against it. You can lobby. You can get like normal people do. They get people elected who they want to change policies. Now we have a more conservative administration. We're cutting back on a lot of things.
Right.
I don't see that as necessarily. I think Kennedy was killed for a lot of reasons. That wouldn't be it. I think not getting us into Vietnam from the permanent war class. See, I look at this from the globalist perspective. The globalists always want to keep us at war. And I went through this history before, so let me do it again real quickly. We had World War I, and then we had this horrible depression worldwide, which created the conditions basically for World War II.
Yes.
World War I created the conditions for World War II, so we're still at war. Okay. I mean, we went from the Mexican-American War to the Spanish-American War to a bunch of other little wars to World War I to the Depression to World War II. Now, in 1945, what I find fascinating, the UN was created, and Korea was split that same year, 1945.
Should have let MacArthur have his way.
No, MacArthur should have had nothing to do with it. No, what they should have done is just not let it be split. There was no reason to split the Koreas. Okay, so we're at war 5 years later, permanent war class, right? So they get us at war. The Korean War ends in 1953. Guess who split in 1954? Vietnam. Permanent war class keeps us at war. Split Vietnam, keep us there in the 60s and the 70s. The 80s come along, and where do we go? Iraq. Permanent war class. Where are we now? Afghanistan. Permanent war class. There's a war class that keeps us permanently at war. That's my problem.
And most people don't know this, but JFK's second term, he was considering replacing LBJ.
Okay.
He was going to fire J. Edgar Hoover and replace him with Bobby Kennedy, and he was going to gradually begin the process of leaving Vietnam.
Yeah, I think the permanent war class didn't want that. I'll tell you another thing that people didn't want that Kennedy was going to do. He was going to basically replace fiat money in the Federal Reserve with a gold standard and silver notes. And the only other president to do that was Lincoln. Guess what happened to him? Guess what happened to Kennedy? So if you really want to get the conspiracy, if you really want to look into what's happening, look to the bankers, okay? And you're going to say, oh yeah, Bilderbergers, you know, Trilateral Commission. Well, maybe there's something to that. Okay, maybe there's more to this than we know, but we do know that Kennedy had plans to give us back our money. Real money. Silver and gold backed currency, not what we have today, this quantitative easing, which means if your economy sucks, you print a whole bunch more money and people feel richer because there's more money out there. But it's like taking a pie and cutting more pieces. You don't get any more unless you increase the pie, or you make a new pie, okay? But if you have a pie with 4 pieces and you cut it into 8 pieces, you think, oh look, it's like dollars. Do you have any more dollars? Do you have more dollars? No! Each dollar's worth half as it was before. You've got 8 pieces in the pie, but you don't have any more pie. Which brings us to Venezuela. All right. I thought about this morning. In our first video, we talked about how Kavanaugh believes that the Constitution, the Liberty Clause of the Constitution, basically allows the Supreme Court to create any right they want. And that was proven by Lindsey Graham. So you've got to go through all our videos to find this. What if, and this is my horror scenario as I was brushing my teeth this morning. This is what I think about, all right? Well, I don't know what you guys think about. I think about issues, all right? So here I'm brushing my teeth this morning thinking to myself, all right, so what if the Supreme Court decided that within the Liberty Clause is a living wage tied to inflation? And we get a socialist takeover like Venezuela, and that $15 an hour living wage, which is guaranteed by the Supreme Court, who found a right to a living wage in the Liberty Clause of the 14th Amendment, is tied to inflation, and we have hyperinflation, and that $15 an hour becomes $15 million an hour. Why not? Think about it. Can you imagine, first of all, the printing presses to print out $15 million an hour per employee is a staggering amount of paper.
It is.
You want to talk about greenhouse effect of ruining all the trees and getting rid of the, you know, having all the CO2 out there from producing all that paper? You'd have like $5 million notes. You'd have to. In fact, they had a new thing. They actually chopped 5 zeros off the currency because there were too many zeros on the currency. That's what happens with hyperinflation, and that's the danger of the Supreme Court. And there's no reason to assume that if we had a Democrat president and a majority on the Supreme Court, they couldn't put through a living wage. The Supreme Court would then authorize it and say, yes, it's in the Liberty Clause of the Constitution. You can't have liberty if you don't have money. All right, I'm going to make your argument for you, and you know, you can just sit there and listen to this, right? But that would be one of the worst possible things. And even though you might want a living wage now, I'll bet. Well, let me see what you think. Would you want the Supreme Court to have the power to create that as a right to a living wage?
I think that's something that should be decided by Congress.
Okay. I'm about done. I got more to talk about here. We'll save it for next week. But I got lawnmower parents, and I've got. I got more stuff on it. Well, I kind of talked about. We talked about Kavanaugh. We talked about that. We haven't talked about Alex Jones. Alex Jones being banned from Twitter.
What about Alex Jones?
Alex Jones. Real quickly, nobody should be banned from Twitter. Twitter is a public access social media is part of free speech, just like campaigns are free speech. They should not be allowed to ban anybody. Now they can say, we don't recommend you listen to them because they're, profanity and things like that. Of course, every 12-year-old is going to immediately tune them in.
Right. That's what I did.
But I don't believe that any publicly viewed social media company, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, should be allowed to censor or limit anybody, regardless of how disgusting or obnoxious their material is. Just don't look at it.
See, I'm kind of undecided here, because on the one hand, I also don't like the idea that he's just completely been erased.
Okay.
I don't think that should have happened. But I love the idea that now the parents of Sandy Hook victims, I mean, all these people he was hurting with his rhetoric, will be safe from him.
Yeah, but you can't be safe. You can't be safe from opinion.
Right.
Because you could say anything. It's like, I don't want, we want to make people safe from guns, therefore nobody can own one.
Well, there's a fine line between opinion and, though I have no proof this shooting didn't happen, here are the names of the parents, go harass them. I mean, that's what the guy did.
Yeah, see, now, and I'm not saying what he did was right. I'm not justifying what he said. I'm saying he has a right to say it, but everybody else has a right to contradict him.
Right.
Everybody else has a right to say, you're a total idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. You're dangerous, and they have that right too.
Right.
But that's wake up. He had a long night. Okay. But that's how you correct that kind of thing. You don't censor somebody. You pile on the objections against them, and if the preponderance of people say, "Look, you jerk, Sandy Hook was a horrible tragedy," but in the respect that I don't believe that the gun-grabbing crowd should use Sandy Hook as a way to take guns away from law-abiding people. You have to separate the actions of murderers from the right of law-abiding people to exercise those rights. And that's where I fault the gun-grabbing community. In the same way, and I put a post on this earlier, getting rid of guns from law-abiding folks to stop school shootings is like getting rid of bank accounts to stop bank robberies.
And
it makes no sense to me.
No one has ever actually called him on it. Like, no one has ever gone and debated this guy. It's Alex Jones.
Hey, Alex Jones, you want to be on our show?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
I mean, a really good example.
I'll tell you, Alex Jones, I'm going to send you the Greg and Donny News Show.
A really good example I can think of is Milo Yiannopoulos. This guy was, everyone on the left was scared of him.
A prominent gay Republican.
Yes. Everyone on the left was scared of him.
With a black boyfriend?
Yeah. They'd go to his rallies, they'd get all
How come that's not celebrated?
They try to shut
No, wait a minute.
him
How
down.
come that's not celebrated? Milo Yiannopoulos is banned from campuses. He's a gay Republican with a black boyfriend. He's a white guy. Why isn't that celebrated for diversity?
Well, because he's a god-awful human being. But...
Oh, okay. So diversity only counts when you're politically acceptable. If you have a diverse point of view, and you happen to meet the identity qualities that would normally qualify you for a Democrat, because you said earlier that gay people can't be Republicans.
Not can't. I just don't understand why.
Oh, okay. I just want to know where you draw the line. I want to see if we can make a distinction here. I interrupted you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What I was saying about Milo is that everyone was treating him like he was the biggest threat. Bill Maher, who, as you know, I consider a personal hero, had him on the show.
Well, everybody can make a mistake.
Yeah. Well, and everyone was...
My cheap shot.
Everyone was saying, "Oh, Bill Maher, you shouldn't do that. I'm boycotting your show."
No, you don't do that.
He had Milo on. Him, Larry Wilmore, Malcolm Nance, and one other guy who was actually a Republican made him look like the biggest idiot. And
that's okay.
And that was when you stopped seeing Milo.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's okay. If you can make Milo look like an idiot, that's fine.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that, because everybody has to stand up for their point of view. I mean, if someone wants to challenge me on the show, in fact, we should open this up to local folks. If you want to come on the show, and take us on, be you liberal or conservative or somewhere in the middle. In fact, we just thought of this just now. We haven't even talked about this. But send us a message at the Greg and Donny News Show. We do have a message portion. If you we'll make you an instant guest. As long as you're a decent person, and our rules are very simple. Disagree, but don't be disagreeable.
Yes.
I think that's about the only rule we have.
It really is.
Yeah. But fair game, you can be as controversial as you want. God knows we're controversial. I just was when I said that. But yeah, I don't. And I hadn't noticed that about. I wonder where Milo went. I'll tell you one thing that, and I think you're going to kind of agree with me when you think about this for a bit, but you certainly don't have to. One of the services that Alex Jones provided was information on the amount of armaments and armed officers that Barack Obama was creating. The weather service, NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, has a SWAT team. The Department of Education has a SWAT team. people you would never suspect. Virtually everybody that works for the IRS is an armed agent. He brought in thousands, or he armed thousands of federal, basically workers, employees, made them agents with arms, and he stockpiled billions of rounds of ammunition. And Alex Jones brought this out. It's one of the best things he ever did. And we started questioning this. It's like, why do you need to arm all these people? Why, basically it's the Second Amendment in reverse, where the government is better armed than the people. And I have a proposal, I call it defense equality. So defense equality is where the people are armed equal to the government. If the people, in fact, the people should be armed supreme to the government. That's a check on the power of government, because you've all seen dictatorships through the ages have basically oppressed their people with superior arms. That's why governments don't let people own guns. That's why the United States is special. So we need to keep that right. All right. So in fact, it's kind of interesting that the liberal folks who want to be able to protest to get rid of guns, if they lost the guns, would also possibly lose the protection that those guns provide them to make that protest in the first place.
One of the few things we agree on.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people have thought about that. We need some real gun grabbing. We need like gun grabbing women, because it's mostly women. Okay, it just is. It's a fact. All right, most of the gun grabbers are women, because women don't believe in freedom as much as men do. Oh, let's be really. Oh, you like that? Well, why do you think that countries go more socialist when women get the vote? Why do you think that socialists want women voting? Now, I'm not saying women shouldn't vote. I just wish you'd vote differently. Vote for more freedom. Think I caused a little controversy there?
You did.
So we're fair game. I mean, this is where it goes. We are, if only men voted, we would be a freer country. We wouldn't be a better country, but we'd be a freer country, because men vote for more freedom than women do. Women vote for more socialism and more controls and more security. Women believe more in security. Men believe more in freedom, which is why I've always said that women feel free when they're secure and men feel secure when they're free. It's a fundamental difference in between us. That's why we need more women guests.
Women voters also, I agree, but women voters also generally tend to think more about everyone else than they do just about themselves and their interests.
Well, and they should think about themselves and their interests, because that's the whole basis of an individual society. See, Ayn Rand was right. There is a good selfishness that allows you to act in yourself, and she's a woman, allows you to act in your interests, and in everybody acting in their own interests and exercising their own rights. And if those rights run against somebody else's rights, going to court if you have to sort of find the barriers and where you draw that line, that's a good thing. Not a bad thing. So yeah, so that's interesting. We should talk about, let's have some fun. We'll talk about should women vote. No, and actually I think yes. But again, I wish you'd vote differently.
Interesting to bring Ayn Rand up. She was very abusive towards her husband. I find it funny that a lot of her followers are men. Did we go off?
No, it's still on.
I find it funny. A lot of her